benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Please be seated. Manningham City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land we now know as Manningham. We pay our respects to Wurundjeri elders past and present and value the ongoing contribution to the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council would also like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public here tonight to this council meeting who have come along to observe proceedings. I'd like to advise those present that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice and/or image is broadcast. All council meetings are controlled by a meeting procedure local law. I'll introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda by calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments or supplementary motions. I'd like to draw your attention to item 7 on today's agenda, public question time, which provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of the council. Questions must be registered prior to the commencement of the meeting to be asked. If we do not have the information to hand to provide a meaningful response, the question may be taken on notice and a response provided in writing. I would also stress that I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to Council through the normal channels. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leaves of absence. There are no apologies. Item number 3, prior notifications of conflict of interest. No prior notifications of conflict of interest have been received. Item number 4 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? And Councillor Conlon.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on 26th of March 2019 be confirmed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chen. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 5, presentations. Anzac Day. This Anzac Day, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge one of the most important, most significant days in our national calendar. Anzac Day goes beyond the anniversary of the landing of Gallipoli in 1915. It is a day on which we remember all Australians who served and died in war and operational service, both past and present. The spirit of the Anzac, with qualities of courage, mateship and sacrifice, continues to have meaning in for our national identity. Anzac Day is a day for us to collectively give thanks to all current and former members of our Defence Forces, the brave men and women who serve our country on a daily basis. We also acknowledge the losses and sacrifice of their families. There'll be a number of Anzac Day services around Manningham on Thursday. These include Doncaster RSL, the dawn service at 6 a.m, Templestowe RSL, the march commencing at 8:20 a.m, followed by the Anzac Day service at 8:30 a.m, and the Warrandyte RSL, march commencing at 10:30 a.m, followed by the Anzac Day service at 10:45. So it's actually possible to go to all 3. It's a long-standing tradition that we take a moment to pause in silent reflection and remember the sacrifice of those who serve this country. Please join me as we honour the gallant men and women who serve and continue to serve with a minute's silence. All stand, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Item number 5.2. It's with sadness that I note the recent passing of Manningham's Revenue Officer Penny Meehan. Ms Meehan served as our Revenue Services Revenue Services team from 2017 to 2019. Our deepest sympathies are extended to Ms Meehan's family at this very difficult time. Item number 6, petitions. 6.1, online petition. Stop Hoon Drivers in Eyre Street, Doncaster, Koonung Ward. Do I have a mover? Anna, Councillor Chen.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I would like to move that the online petition with 121 signatories from residents of Manningham and people from various locations across Australia and around the world, calling on Council to introduce permanent safety measures on Eyre Street, Doncaster, be received and referred through the appropriate officer for consideration. Here is the online petition.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Zafiropoulos, thank you. So item number 7 is public question time. We have 2 questions from Ms Georgina Dimpoulis. Could the questioner please come forward to the microphone, please? You have two minutes to give a brief introductory statement before asking your questions.
Certainly. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present my questions to Council. As has already been noted, my name is Georgina Dimopoulos, and I'm a resident of Eyre Street in Doncaster. I'm the creator of the petition just presented to Council concerning Hoon drivers destroying the safety and amenity of Eyre Street. This petition, which currently has 134 signatures, underscores the concern of many residents of Eyre Street, some of whom are present this evening, regarding hoon driving and speeding in our street. Hoons have been doing burnouts and engaging in other highly dangerous behaviour with increasing frequency, particularly in the segment of Eyre Street between High Street and Parkview Place. Now, photos of the damage caused to our street, as well as a video of the hoons in action, were provided to the Koonung Ward councillors and to the Mayor last week. There are many young children and elderly people living in Eyre Street, and it's only a matter of time before someone is seriously injured or killed and properties damaged. Victoria Police have been very slow to act on the complaints made regarding this hoon behaviour. We've been advised to simply call 000 every time a burnout happens so that the incident can be logged. This is a very reactive approach and makes a mockery of the anti-hoon laws if they're not enforced. Now, the hoon behaviour is adversely impacting on our quality of life in what should be a safe, family-friendly street. The noise at all hours of the night, ranging from 9 o'clock PM to 2 o'clock AM, and even during the day, and the plumes of smoke and the pungent smell of burning rubber are disruptive and unhealthy, not to mention our fears of serious injury and damage that could be caused by an out-of-control vehicle. Now, in light of this background, my first question to Council is, what progress has been made by Manningham Council City Services and City Planning and Community in their investigation into infrastructure changes and road safety measures on Eyre Street to deter hoon drivers, as per the referral by Deputy Mayor Chen on the 17th April 2019? And my second question is, given that this is not the first time that concerns have been raised by residents of Eyre Street about hoon drivers, and in light of the petition just presented to Council, will a person or animal need to be seriously injured or killed in order for Manningham City Council to take action? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll direct those questions to the Director of City Services, Mr Lee Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that there's been recent correspondence in the last fortnight about this matter, which has been brought to my attention. You're right, looking at those images is clearly a problem, and I undertake to take the matter under review. In terms of what we've done just in the last couple of weeks, we've spoken to the police about the possibility of putting cameras, surveillance cameras in. So that's still I'm not guaranteeing anything there. It's a work in action. So, but we're certainly looking at it. We appreciate there's a problem, and we'll be looking to do something.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. We have another question that's been submitted by Mr. Tam Jan Lim. Could Mr. Tam Jan Lim please come to the podium? Mr. Lim, you have 2 minutes to make a brief introductory statement before asking your question.
Thank you. My name is Tam Jan Lim of resident number 7, Dempster Court, Donville. Some months ago, I came to your office at Doncaster and asked for feedback as to whether the extension building work carried out by my neighbour has had approval from council. I was told to put it in writing, which I did there and then. Some months have passed and I've had no response whatsoever. I proceeded to ask the same question on the council webpage, and there was no answers too. I then emailed the secretary of the council and had a response to the effect the matter is forwarded to the relevant staff. The matter has had no response too. I then requested to know whether I can attend a council meeting, to which a response came to advise that the meeting will take place. When the meetings take place, I rang up to find out if I attend whether I can ask any questions at the meeting, to which I was told I need to put it in writing and submit it and deposit it in a box before the meeting commences. Can you find out why and what is going on for such a treatment method to me?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Lim. I'm going to direct it to the Director of City Planning and Community, Mr. Angelo Corombos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Mr. Lim, thank you for your question. And firstly, I apologise for the delay in officers responding to your queries. We do have record, and we have looked at the complaint that you lodged on the 25th of January, and officers a few days later on the 31st of January actually went out and inspected the property that you mentioned. And since then we've been working, our building team's been working actively with the owners of that property regarding a number of building matters, and that's ongoing. As I said, I apologise for the delay. We should have responded to you much earlier than what we have, but we did send you an email on the 3rd of April. So if you haven't got that email, I'm happy to forward that through to you.
I didn't receive anything.
You again, yeah. But I can assure you we are looking at those matters that you brought to our attention.
I find it rather distressing that this was obviously, ignored. I hope it will not be. And I hope Council will be a bit more proactive.
Okay.
I'm not here to create trouble.
No,
I think Council needs to be proactive.
Thank you, Mr. Lim, and we hear you, and thank you very much for your question. And we have one more questioner, which is Mr. Darryl Kilmartin. Now, Mr. Martin, you've got 2 minutes to make a brief introductory statement and then ask your question.
Thank you. My name, as mentioned, Darryl Kilmartin. I'm a member of the Doncaster Masters Athletics, a member of the committee of the Doncaster Athletics Club, and a life member of Doncaster Little Athletics. I'm standing here speaking on behalf of all of those people tonight, many of whom have represented in the room tonight because we're just a little bit perplexed in regard to some funding grant that came our way. We were surprised to find the federal government come down and present us through member Kevin Andrews with a cheque or a promise of a cheque for $125,000 for a lighting upgrade. Certainly something that we were keen for, something we've been chasing for many years, over 10 years. It's been in the council's reserve management plan for the Rysheks Reserve area for 7 years, and it was an action item in that plan 7 years ago. Obviously an inaction item from my perspective, and we've pushed and so forth. Well, it seems that somebody must have heard us somewhere, because somebody here at council applied for that money. They put our name on the application. We didn't know anything about it. However, hallelujah, the money came, $125,000 on our behalf for the co-funding for the lights. My question is simply, why is the co-funding not in the budget? And why would there be any reticence at all in supporting the motion of Councillor Dot Haynes tonight to just simply incorporate it? I know it's not the way you normally do things around here. I understand that's not the way it's done. I don't care. We don't care. All we care about is the fact that you asked for the money on our behalf, you got the money, it should be in the budget. So my question is, why would you ask for the money and not put it in the budget? And yes, I did meet with Mr Harding's replacement while he was on leave, and we discussed it, and they offered a lesser amount of co-funding and asked if we would put up some money. We were perplexed by that, given that we felt...
Well, Mr Gilmartin, I think there's been a misunderstanding as to...
Kilmartin, by the way.
Kilmartin, sorry.
Yes.
As to applying for funds on whose behalf, because the monies have been applied for by the council. Mm-hmm. So I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding, but I will direct your question to our Director of City Services, Mr Lee Harrison.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, there has been a bit of a misunderstanding here. We did put in an application for funding to go towards upgrading the pavilion, which is a shared use pavilion between yourselves and others.
Yes.
And also for the lighting on the Rysheks Reserve, not on the athletics facility. Now, can I just... Now, I do acknowledge that the management plan does have in it a plan to upgrade the lighting at the athletics track. And in 2016, we did upgrade the lamps, the lanterns, as a first step. But the reserve was seen as a higher priority because the lighting there is quite inadequate. So there was a misunderstanding. We are very grateful to the federal government for coming forward with $125,000, but because council didn't originally apply for that lighting at the athletics track, we now have to consider it within the context of the whole budget through our budget process.
Am I allowed any time to respond?
Would you like to ask one more question?
I would like to ask more question. I'm wondering where the confusion lies, because I'm getting a lot of different information here. Okay. The first of it is that...
Well, I can answer that partly. So when we advocated to Mr Kevin Andrews for funding for Rysheks Pavilion, mm-hmm. he contacted us and said he was going to make an announcement about Rysheks Pavilion floodlighting, and that's where we went for the announcement. Now, he happened to go to the Tom Kelly track instead. So when he was at the Tom Kelly track, he then decided to make the application for the Tom Kelly track.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so that's where the misunderstanding. Yeah. When he was at that track, he said, "I'm going to do it for the Tom Kelly track." We didn't advocate for the Tom Kelly track because in our master plan, we're seeking floodlighting for the other reserve. Now, that's now happened. We have made the application for for the funding for the lighting on the Tom Kelly track, and it is tentatively been approved. We still don't have a deed of agreement from the department that absolutely confirms we've got that funding. And as you know, there's a federal election. Yep. And after the election, there'll be a new minister appointed, and it will be within their discretion not to proceed with it. We think they will proceed with it, but there's still some uncertainty about it because it was done in the context of an election campaign.
With all due respect,
yes?
Ms Mayor, I believe that the confusion is in this office and in this department, because the application clearly outlined, had 3 item points on it. One of them was for the pavilion, one of them was for the lighting for the area that you've referred to and that your council officer referred to us, but one of them was clearly for the Doncaster athletic track, and it was itemised. It had a dollar figure next to it. We have evidence of that from the federal government, from your office. So you have been misled. You were uninformed.
Okay, I'm going to direct that question to the CEO, Mr. Day.
No, thanks for the question. So as was pointed out by Mr. Harrison, the application that we put in was subsequent to the announcement from Mr. Andrews. So, as the Mayor pointed out, we were advocating for funding for Reichek's Reserve.
Mm-hmm. And you itemised those 3 different things.
If you can let me finish.
Yeah.
So, once the announcement was made, information came through that clarified that the announcement was in relation to the lighting at Tom Kelly Athletics Track. That was a clarification that came through to us as officers. The application that we have put through itemises a number of different areas: the reserve, the pavilion, the lights on that reserve, and also the lights at Tom Kelly. As Mr. Harrison pointed out, the issue that we have is that the lights at Tom Kelly Athletics Track were not in the current budget because they were not seen as the highest priority in terms of lighting upgrade and lighting infrastructure for council this year. That is the reason it's not in their budget, in our budget, in our draft budget. We were very conscious that we wanted to make sure, prior to going into caretaker, that there was an application put in so the funding wasn't lost to the community. That is what officers did. The reality is, though, at the timing of the announcement, the long-term capital works program and next year's proposed draft capital program had already been considered, spoken about with council, and that is what we have brought forward. We haven't put additional funding in for either of the other projects either at this point, because there are additional projects that were also announced, and this is happening right across Victoria and right across Australia at the moment. So we have not put that funding in the budget because at the moment we're in a position where we've got to advise council on what the implications of that funding means for other projects or for the budget as a whole. So that is the reason it is not in the draft budget. And I understand you've also been advised that you're more than welcome as a club to make a submission to the budget if and when it's approved by council tonight to go out in draft form for public consultation, and they can then consider whether they make further amendments to the capital works program.
I'm not satisfied with the fullness of the answer in that the line item for the Tom Kelly track funding was part of the request to the federal government. The federal government clearly came back and said, of these items, we choose to fund this. And they funded it on our behalf, and we're standing here saying, all right, you asked for it, you got the money, where's the other half? Whatever you need to do tonight to do that, I encourage and implore the councillors to support the motion of Councillor Dot Haynes to add that to this year's budget. We would feel that putting us through submissions and with and all that process in order to do this is not in the spirit of it. We weren't consulted prior to, and now it's come along. We would ask for the money.
Mr. Kilpatrick, you're not the only club. Kilmartin. You are not the only one in that. You're not the only club in that position.
We're the only ones sitting here.
You have had an opportunity to debate this point, and I'll have to. So thank you very much for your time and for your questions. Thank you. Right. I'm now going to go to item number 8, which is admissions of urgent business. Are there any items for urgent business?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor,
Councillor McLeish.
I move that Council admits for consideration the following urgent business at item 14 of this meeting. A notice of motion by Councillor Paul McLeish, notice of motion number 1-2019.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 9, planning permit applications. Item number 9.1, application PLA 18/0095 to amend planning permit PL 12/022747 at 659 Doncaster Road, Doncaster, to include a residential hotel within stage 1 of the proposed development and make alterations to the apartment buildings in stage 2. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haynes. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And there has been a long history of this site development, from proposed bunnies positioned front and center of Doncaster Road to be relocated at the corner of Doncaster and Tower Street. Tonight, before Council, there is an amended application to facilitate an 190-room residential hotel above the proposed bunnies. Previously, 99 apartments were approved in a tower complex. The hotel main pedestrian is from Doncaster Road. Basement car parking is from Tower Street only. The proposed bunnies access will be from Doncaster Road and Council Street. There is established landscaping that provides boulevard treatment, requires under the activity center zone and the Doncaster Hill strategy. As we can see from page 22 of the agenda, the overall design and build form are contemporary and stylish. The design and layout of the basement car parking are also improved to provide separation of users. Modern new hotel is a good opportunity to attract inbound tourists and improve domestic demand. The hotel development is supported within Council's economic and development strategy and aligns with Doncaster Hill vision to achieve a sustainable and vibrant mixed-use activity center. And the main thing is the residential hotel development also create jobs for our local community. That is why I ask our fellow councillors' support for this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Would the seconder like to speak?
Not really. I think she's done a great job. I'm just glad that this outcome is so much better than the one we have already approved. So I ask for council's support.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 9.2, planning application PLN 18/0121 of 8 Montgomery Street, Doncaster East, for the construction of 18 townhouses with associated basement car parking and a reduction to the standard resident car parking requirements. Do I have a mover? Councillor Zafiropoulos.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chen. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes. Both at the state level and at the local level, activity centres are encouraged for high density. Although this particular development has a lot of inconsistencies relevant to the objectives of the Manningham planning scheme. The inconsistencies relate to the development typology. The officers had made it quite clear that apartment rather than townhouses would have been a more appropriate development. The intensity and build form with respect to the facade presentation and substantial setback non-compliances and deck encroachment, and also an overall inadequacy of landscaping. Internal amenity is substantially compromised by virtue of the overall layout and siting of the townhouses.
I've got some specific concerns that I've been able to summarise from the officer's report, and these include functional layout, the internal layouts of ground level living areas are unacceptable for 4-bedroom townhouses. The housing choice and diversity leaves a lot to be desired. We object to the unduly bulky upper levels, also to the private open space provision, accessibility, safety and integration, access to sunlight for some of the townhouses. Car parking provision is also inadequate. We require 34 and only 32 are in the development. Also, the garages are totally inappropriate. Their width are 3.1 metres and what we require is 3.5 metres. Access arrangements fail to provide for safe and efficient vehicle circulation. And the proposed affordable housing fails to achieve the preferred build form outcomes and levels of amenity for future residents. And the list goes on and on. So very rarely do we find applications for development with so many non-compliance. So this is clearly a case for rejection. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? Councillor Chen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and Councillor McZufferos have summed it all. But I just want to add that because when the title is lodged with title office, the Section 173 agreement was registered untitled, mainly just to covenant the future owner to provide affordable housing at least not less than 10%. And also that requested at least 25 below the market rent. But unfortunately, in this instance, the application tucked away the 2 affordable housing around the corner, and I think that that's really sad, and that make the 2 affordable housing not be able to integrate it into the development. And also, they take away the 2 car parking on the basis that the affordable housing they don't really need car parking. And I think that they basically take away the right for future owners to be able to own a car, and for those situations, which I think that is really inequitable and unfair. So I think that the officers has rightly rejected this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any speakers against the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 9.3, planning application PLN 18/0524 at 23 Frederick Street, Doncaster, for the construction of a 5-storey apartment building comprising of 17 dwellings with associated basement car parking and reduction in the standard visitor car parking requirements. Do I have a mover? Councillor Haynes.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This application was put through to officers and they clearly communicated well with the developer that this was definitely not fitting within the planning scheme, and over the time there was many discussions since 2018 and early 2018, and yet the developer continued with not making many or any changes as for further information, and that's why the council officers have put a really great detailed report as a refusal, so that way they fit within the statutory requirements to achieve the outcome within the 60 days of what the planning scheme request is through the State Government Local Government Act. And they've done a really good job in a short time to be able to put together a really detailed reasons for the notice of refusal, including excessive scale and all those things. So I just, without going into too much detail, I ask that the council support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yeah, I might just add a couple of points. I've also went through and identified all the non-compliance issues, and there are several. And as I pointed out before, it's rare that you get applications with so many non-compliance issues. So I'll just point out a couple of them. The rear setback is non-compliant. It's 3.4 to 3.6 metres instead of 4.5 metres, and 2.55 metres instead of 4.5 metres. So the departure from compliance is quite excessive. The side building setbacks are also non-compliant, 3 metres instead of 4.5 metres. We've also got a mandatory requirement about the building height. It's not significant, however, it's still non-compliant by being 14.55 metres instead of 14.5 metres. So I'm not going to go through all the other issues. Obviously, this is an application that cannot be possibly approved.
Thank you, Councillor Zafiropoulos. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 10, City Planning and Community. 10.1, Manningham Draft Parking Permit Policy 2019. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move an alternative motion, please.
Yes, Councillor.
The alternative motion is that the Council adopts the Manningham Parking Permit Policy 2019, subject to the following change to the table in Section 1, page 263 of Council Agenda, and Appendix 1, page 271 of Council Agenda, that 10 or more dwellings excluding apartment development as defined in the Manningham Planning Scheme that have been lawfully occupied prior to the 23rd of April 2019 are eligible to apply for a maximum of 1 vehicle parking permit subject to an application fee.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Our city is growing and we are facing increasing demand for on-street car parking, and we need an updated on-street parking policy to manage the demand. And there are some key changes, and I don't need to repeat it, that is already set on the agenda. My issues is regarding residential parking permit. According to the updated parking permit policy, there will be no residential parking permit for development of 5 or more dwellings constructed after the adoption date of the renewed policy. My concern is about the existing development consisting of 10 or more dwellings. If the renewed parking policy is adopted, these residents will no longer able to apply for on-street parking permit. It is not uncommon in some suburbs, such as Doncaster or Doncaster East, that a lot is subdivided into 10 or more. That happened, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even longer. And there are typical one-level units, or a few of them are perhaps 2-story townhouses. Some of the developments are for over 55 residents retirement living. I agree that we need to address the limited supply of on-street parking. But if this restriction applies to the existing dwellings, and that, in my opinion, they would be grossly unfair and inequitable to the existing residents. It makes it even worse if there are street parking restrictions in place. So if the restriction applies to the future multi-dwellings, the purchaser will have an opportunity to decide whether to purchase the dwellings or not. And they also can send a message to the market that we really need, there is a demand for visitor parking, so the developer will consider the need to provide visitor parking to the future purchaser. So yes, some may suggest that the multi-dwelling should use garage for vehicle parking and not storage, but the situation also applies with the single dwelling as well. So, I mean that in fairness, I plead to my fellow councillor to consider this alternative motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Would the seconder like to speak? Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 11, City Services. 11.1, the Annual Environmental Report 2017-2018. Do I have a mover? Councillor Galbally.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, just briefly, because once we endorse this, if we endorse this tonight, it will go out to publication for the community to read exactly what council has done between the years 2017 and 18 to ensure that our environment is in good order. So I'll just sort of mention one point as a highlight, that within that year, 17-18, Council did replace 2.5 million of energy efficient LEDs. That is, it was up to 6,000 LEDs, which the result of that would be saving Council about $370,000 and 2,200 tonnes of greenhouse emissions, which brings us close to our 20% emission reduction for 2020. And also with our waste, the waste to landfill was its lowest since 2001 and 2, and that's even regarding with our growth of population. And of course we do have a challenge now, as do every other council, since China's ban on Australian recyclables, as to how we will be dealing with it in the future. But hopefully we'll all get together and find a result to that. So please pass this recommendation and get the report up on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galbally. Would the seconder like to speak?
I will, Madam Mayor. And I agree with the comments that Councillor Galbally has talked about there, because the LED lighting is a major one. And yes, it did cost us money, but in the long run it's going to save us money with those electricity bills and the effects in greenhouse gases into the future. And that's a great investment that this council has made for the future. Our waterways have always been important, and if I go back through the years with our environmental statements, a lot of it's been on the creeks and the rivers, especially the creeks in the non-urban area, actually polluting with a lot of E. coli and a whole lot of other things into that waterway, and a lot is mentioned on that. But the other great thing on this one is the exercise we've done at Bolan over this particular period, and the filling of that Bolan Billabong, and the water stuff going down there. Water is a major, and purification of the water that goes into the Yarra is a major thing to clean up that whole Yarra. And I'm pleased to say that, you know, probably over the last 20 or 30 years, that Yarra is getting cleaner and cleaner. And I do know that many years ago, it's irrelevant to today, but many years ago, we had the number of platypus in the river and in the creeks as an indicator of our success. And believe me, there are quite a few in the river these days. All you have to do is get up there early. But we do have to report this, and this is just looking at the highlights. There are a lot of other things that the council does in this regard, and they're not necessarily mentioned in this brief report. These are the highlights of major fundings for this particular period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Agenda item 12, shared services. 12.1, the 2019-20 annual budget, incorporating the 2019 to 2023 strategic resource plan. Adoption in principle. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Madam
Yes,
Mayor.
Madam Mayor. Sorry, I would like to
Councillor
move an
Haynes.
alternative motion. I would like to move an alternative motion.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have been told that most people in the gallery do not have this motion, but I've also been told by our officers.
Councillor, I'm just going to interrupt you for a moment because I've just been guided by the Mr. Rod McHale, the governance consultant. Which motion are you moving?
I'm moving the alternative motion, the councillor's alternative motion.
So you are moving that the councillor's alternative motion be adopted, is that correct?
The alternative motion be adopted.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder to that? Thank you, councillor Conlon. You may now speak, councillor.
Thank you. I believe that it has now been put to the public, so does that mean I don't have to read the whole thing out to the public?
Would you like to put that question through me, councillor?
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
Sorry.
Okay. That is correct. You do not have to read it out
Okay.
in full.
So thank you.
Thank you.
All councillors have that. So, Madam Mayor, I put this motion, you've already heard a few discussions today, but over the last few weeks, I was sent to attend on behalf of the Mayor through the staff to an announcement that was being made. I knew nothing about it. And there has been, and that was the federal government funding announcement to do with the Tom Kelly Reserve, the Tom Kelly Athletics Field lighting. I then received many correspondences, as for all the other councillors have too, regarding the fact that this is not within our budget. And there was plenty of conversations with officers as well, and officers. The concerns from the people and all the users of the Tom Kelly athletic field were that they were being asked to co-fund the co-funding. I'm thankful that this council successfully lobbied for the federal government for several projects and that the community is needed. And I'm asking that the councillors just put within the Capital Works budget line. I actually just wanted it to go into the Capital Works budget because I know that if it's not in there, it doesn't get put through, and there is a process that can be coming through in the next 2 months to try and do that, which is the process we often do, and there is not, there is often discussion and then further conversations, and I believe this has already been communicated enough through the council and the different organisations that the flood lighting for the cash reserve, out of the cash reserve, because there is a lot of cash reserve in my understanding that that is now available. So I would just like to ask the councillors add this one line item within the Capital Works, within this motion, so it does get included in the Capital Works program, so that way the 7-year wait will be ended.
Thank you, councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
I would. Thank you, Mayor. The reason I'm seconding this is not to actually support it, but to just so that we can have a transparent discussion about this particular item. I'm passionate about good governance, and to me good governance starts with transparency, open discussion, and in this case, as we've heard from the CEO, the proper process for the application of these funds to the budget, as has been proposed by Councillor Haynes, is through the draft process. So the actual motion tonight, which hasn't been proposed yet, is to adopt the budget to be exhibited and then discussed and then adopted as a final document that we will then be able to publicise as our final budget. So why, again, this is about good governance. Good governance means that we have to discuss things, we have to make sure that we can pay for things, we have to know all the facts, not just half the facts. We haven't had time to consider this proposal in full. We haven't had all the discussion. We haven't heard from other clubs who may want also extra money in the budget, or maybe to give some back, I don't know. But this is about good governance, and so I would suggest that councillors vote against this motion, and that we consider it in the due process of good governance over the next few months, providing that we get submissions from various clubs.
Good governance.
Thank you. May I please have silence in the chamber? Only councillors are here to debate a motion, as I have indicated at the beginning of the council meeting. So I'm asking for silence while there is debate. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Conlon.
Can I just...
Yes?
So I hope that the people here in the gallery here tonight actually understand the process. And the process is we have a draft budget. There's an opportunity there for everyone in the community to make a submission to that draft budget and have the councillors consider it. I personally don't like being strong-armed into making decisions on the fly, and so therefore I won't be recommending this.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Are there any speakers against the motion?
Yes.
Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as has already been mentioned, we are approving a draft budget to put it out for community consultation. That draft budget has been framed through many, many months of work. The officers have been working on this budget since last year. We as councillors have been meeting about it since early this year. We've met on this budget many, many times. We've discussed many aspects of the budget, many aspects of the capital works budget. There is a very substantial capital works budget in here. It's $50 million worth of capital works. We have all come to the same point in the life cycle of this budget where we now put it out for community consultation. And every year when we put a budget out for community consultation, we get feedback from community organisations who would like us to consider A, B, C or D. One of the submissions that came forward a few years ago was for someone asking for a toilet block to be put in Bulleen Plaza, I think it was. No. Matheson Square. Someone very correctly pointed out to council there was no public toilet there, and the community was forced to use to get permission from a local business to use their toilet. Council listened to that submission, and in the final budget in June, we approved the budget, including funding for that toilet block. It happens all the time. That's our process working in accordance with good governance. And what you might not be aware of, councillors, although I'm pretty sure you are, but certainly plenty of other people in the room may not be aware, but in this particular budget tonight, there is a line item which says including $1.2 million for the Rysix Reserve upgrade, which is to be spent not on this particular matter, on other works in that location. And that has been in our budget, in our forward budget. There's multiple of them here. It's been gradually winding its way forward to be spent in the next financial year, because that's how we do it. It's been in multiple years of the budget, working its way through in time to get the other developments done at Rysix Reserve. Because as a council, what we do is we put out a forward plan, the clubs involved know what's going on, and gradually their project gets to the top of the pile. If you want to go and look at our capital works plan, you'll find there is 10 years worth of queued up works. I know of a club out there that has got a mangy old log cabin as their club facilities. It has no female change rooms, none. Female sports persons get to change in the single cubicle of the girls' toilets, despite there being female teams in that club room. They are patiently waiting for this council to bring a proposal forward through the pipeline to fund the refurbishment of that particular building. That's the sort of process we go through. It would be great to have an emergency process and just pull money out of thin air, but that's not how it works. And then every now and then an election comes along and politicians, federally or state, start making promises. And that forces random changes in council's budget priorities. This particular issue, no doubt, will cause us to revisit our budget. That's what happens. And we will do it in a calm and considered manner as a collective. We will all get a chance to offer an opinion, and then we'll get some opinions from the community, and we as a council will make a decision. But what I won't stand by and have is one particular councillor front-running our process to try and get one particular thing across the line. One of 3 promises. So I'd urge you, councillors, as another councillor has just urged you, to follow a process of good governance, leave this right where it is, and in the coming months, as we move from draft through community consultation to the final budget, we can consider this, having had some good, considered, fully informed advice from the officers who are the professionals in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any speakers for the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and this has come up at the last minute, and I think that is why. And I'm standing here, and I will go back on to, I suppose, good governance and processes, and we have spent, as Councillor McLeish has talked about, a lot of time within a budget. We do have cash reserves, and yes, you could say 120-something thousand out of that budget is neither here nor there. But that is not really correct, because if you did that for everything, they soon add up and all of a sudden you're in mayhem. We've got a situation, and I have a gut feeling that eventually this is going to be considered greatly in the next couple of months. It's something that's been thrown to us. But in all honesty, having something thrown at me 5 minutes or a day before or a couple of days before to make a decision on we've got a budget, we know where we're going with everything here, we say that money's coming in, but we don't know that it is going to come in, and anything that we put in there will be dependent on that money actually flowing through to council. We've got other projects that are in exactly the same position, and they're not being included necessarily in here for tonight. And really, Madam Mayor, I suggest that if we do pass the budget tonight, we should pass another little part of the motion, a part B, C or D, or just whatever letter comes afterwards, to say that we refer the issue of the grants and this particular reserve in the lighting and the other 2 to our budget processes for consideration. And I urge all the people from the club and everything else to come and make a submission to that, because that's what it's about. We're not here to stop things, we are actually here to facilitate them. But I think, in all the time I've been here, I think I can say that in the main we really do sit down and try and get it in through an ordered process in a proper way, not to offend the other people. Because I can think of a lot of people that live in my area that don't have curbs and channel or drains. And they would like that money, any money that we've got, spent on fixing their roads up. And that's on a long-term plan. And I can think of soccer clubs that don't have anything to play on. And I can think of a whole lot of other programs around that we have that we could try and have mayhem and introduce it at the last minute. I'd love to be standing up here and putting in money for streetscapes in Templestowe. I'd love to do it, but I'm not going to, because it hasn't been discussed. We don't know what's going to have to leave or go in or what the actual ramifications are. This isn't the final budget. This is one that's put out to public consultation. This is what we're asking for, and that time to consider. And I think the best way forward is to consider it during that time and not try and rush something through here with very little. I haven't seen one report actually from any officer. I've seen a lot of emails from people, and I've seen a notice of motion. Other than that, I have conflicting stories about the origins of the money, the how it came and what's it for and the mistakes. Why would I put my honour and reputation on the line when I don't know the bottom of those things, which I will in the next weeks be endeavouring to find out exactly how and how we can make things happen. Because at Manningham, we're actually wanting to improve the facilities for everybody, and we're wanting to do it all, and we're wanting to do it in the most open, transparent and regular way, and not being, I suppose, bypassed and pushed into a situation at a last minute through a motion coming up here to go extra. So I believe that we should actually put an extra part to this motion, so whoever moves the next motion, we put an extra part to refer the consideration of these matters in that consultation period.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Are there any other speakers are there any other councillors who would like to speak? No. Accordingly, I will put the alternate motion. All those in favour?
No.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Councillor Dot Haynes, would you like to, would the mover like to close?
Yes, I have more to add, and I thank Councillor Goff for bringing up a couple of points that I haven't already. But one of the things the councillors have been saying is about specific clubs, football clubs and other toilets and things. This is not for a specific club. So I would like to say that the Tom Cataley Athletics Track has many users: Aqua Arena, Schools Victoria, Doncaster Athletics Club, Athletics Victoria, the Doncaster Masters Club, Victorian Masters Athletics Club, Westerfoldians Recreational Running Club, Ruffy Runners, disability groups and the Cancer Council, and many more. This is not something that a club or two clubs can sit down and discuss and use. That is why I brought this up. It hasn't been on the fly or to create mayhem. This has been about being transparent and open. And the conversations that I have had since trying to find out and get to the bottom of this, because there's many emails that got to from council officers and many bits of information that we have been receiving around this table, and I have been trying to get to the bottom of this on a daily basis for the last couple of weeks. So one of the things I would like to put at rest that my fellow councillor has stated, that it is three things. I will say that a financial responsibility is one of the most important parts of being elected to represent the people of Manningham. And this means our budget should seriously factor into the desires and requests and the needs of the community. And this is to do with all age groups and all parts of the community, including the Victorian community. I wish I'd see more Victorian money come through. But this council secured this money thanks to the wonderful lobbying that went to the federal member, and over $600,000 worth of funding for a number of community projects has been approved and done. And that is why I'm very aware that it is more than three. There's the Baronia Grove floodlighting, $125,000. The Shrams Reserve floodlighting, $100,000. The Templestowe Netball floodlighting, $125,000. The Templestowe Reserve floodlighting, $125,000. I think I said netballing, not certain. Zerby's Reserve, $38,000, and the Tom Kelly Athletics Track, $125,000. They're just some of what I've seen gone through, including the one with apparently there's a $5 million roads funding that's been approved. Now, I have been told that the Deputy Prime Minister sent specific letters of offer to our council and other projects, and that we accepted these funding agreements before the federal government went into caretaker mode. I've been advised, thankfully,
Point of order. I have a question, Mr.
Yes. Councillor, could you please take a seat? Councillor McLeish.
Sorry.
Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of quite a number of those grants coming forward to us in any way. Is the council aware that that list of grants that was read out has actually come to us?
So your point of order, Councillor, is accuracy of the submission.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, on that basis, I will actually put that question in terms of accuracy, which is relevant to Mr. Day, the CEO.
In terms of the process and where we're at with the process in relation to the grants that have been announced, particularly the ones that we've spoken about tonight, officers put in submissions to the relevant department prior to caretaker mode, as we were requested to do, to ensure that effectively we had a stake in the ground in relation to those particular grants. We received advice back from the Minister's Office, the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, to confirm effectively that those grants were accepted insofar as that they had received the application from Council, making it quite clear that we should not enter into any sort of agreement at this point in time, commence any works until such time as that we go through the process of a deed of agreement with the department. Now, that is the format for actually securing the funding. We do not have any funding that is actually in Council's coffers at this point in time, and we do not have a formal agreement yet to execute that funding.
And
For which development?
yes, for which developments? Because Mr Day, Councillor Hayne referred to netball, so 125,000 for flood lighting at the netball centre and also Templestowe Reserve. Have we put in applications for those two facilities?
So Council has put in applications for the three announcements that we're aware of, and that is the announcement at the Baronia Grove, obviously the one that we've spoken about tonight in relation to Rychecks Reserve and Tom Kelly, and also at the Templestowe Netball Club. We understand there was also an announcement of 100,000 prior.
Was it the netball?
My apologies.
Was it the netball for flood lighting?
It wasn't for flood lighting, no. The application that we put in, my apologies, Councillor Mayor, was actually for the facilities there, so for the toilets, etc. At the netball, and I understand that prior to the election, there was also an announcement a number of months ago around $100,000 for Shrams as well, and we have put in an application for that.
So, Councillor, in terms of accuracy, there's 3 flood lighting applications granting applications that have been put in, and there's 1 for facilities at the netball centre. So you may continue to close.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for... I know we requested certain things, including, that's why I'm asking for this to go forward tonight, is because we requested for funding for the Rychecks Reserve $1.2 million plan and for some funding to come to that. But what has come to us is lighting for the Tom Kelly, just as what has also come to us is lighting for the netball and not the facility. So we may have lobbied...
Councillor, not lighting for the netball, for the facilities for the netball. There's no flood lighting grant for the netball.
Okay. Well, I'll take that on lack of fact because I believe that that's not true, but then that's just my information.
Well, Councillor, you've been informed by the CEO.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know our request was for, like with Rychecks, but anyway, so back to the point. I have been advised that thankfully Council in its wisdom has accepted a number of fundings accordingly with this official allocation. And as shown in the letters, Council will be in breach of the federal funding agreement, I believe, if they do not do what this money is specifically put for. And this isn't for one club. This isn't just for a facility or a sporting thing. This is for the lights at Tom Kelly Athletics Field, which is for many different clubs. So, councillors, I know you're saying this is not due process, but this is something that, yes, we've been given state money before and it wasn't during budget time, so therefore we put it in the budget then. We've got items in this budget, in this draft budget that's going out to people right now that has these other items funded in it, in our draft budget. So to actually ask for the 125,000, because I guarantee you it's probably very, very unexpected that we will be in this situation again, while I've been at council anyway, that the federal government offered money a few weeks before we were putting our budget together. And I believe that we are very capable of putting a line item in our budget so the many different users of this facility don't have to go through a process of request, and that this transparency and due diligence needs to be brought at the start and now, prior to having to wait to try and request for this when it's already been given to them and they've been told in emails that they're going to have to half fund the other half. I just find it absolutely appalling that we as a council have not put what we need to within the budget for our capital works program. And I want to thank the council for successfully getting so many funds. I'm actually really excited that there is so much funding that's come through. And
Councillor, you're running out of time.
Okay, so thank you. I would also like to add that based on what we're saying, this budget obviously needs more comprehensive information in it and assurances that we are doing due diligence and transparency as far as state and federal government funding go. What commitments has the state and federal government got within this budget? There is none in there, and yet many budgets we do get state and federal funding. So I'm asking that we put this in to create a more comprehensive and insurance budget that is more transparent at the beginning as a draft, because a draft budget that is this flawed, I hate to see what's going to happen by the time we pass it.
Thank you, councillor. I will now put the motion. All those in favour of the alternate motion? All those against the alternate motion? The motion is not carried. Do I have a motion, a councillor who wishes to make a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted with the suggested amendment
Yes.
that the projects which have been identified for federal grant money be also referred to the budget process for consideration.
To the
I'm happy to second
also
that.
be referred to the. Could you just?
Budget process for consideration.
Thank you. Budget. I'm just going to get some advice from governance as to that, if that's an appropriate amendment. Can we, is that okay? Yeah. And make that E? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. Would the mover like to speak?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to rise to speak to this budget. As was noted earlier, we have $50 million worth of capital works being committed in this budget. We have many projects that have been, some of which have been waiting many years to be funded. We have $16.7 million worth of funding for roads, including $7.5 million for road resealing and refurbishment. There's $3.2 million going into Jumping Creek Road. There's $4.3 million in the road management strategy to upgrade parts of the road network. A large amount of money is going to various community buildings. The Domini Reserve Pavilion upgrade is finally going to get off the ground, it would seem, because it's funded in this budget. We're going to redevelop the Baronia Grove Pavilion, thankfully. There's $300,000 going towards female-friendly sports facilities. We are going to finally commence the construction of the Petties Reserve Sporting Development, which is going to add substantially to the soccer facilities in our city. That's a wonderful step forward, much needed, very, very much long overdue. $5.8 million going into drainage improvements. We have, as always, got our 2.5% cap rate increase. That is a constraint on us, but it's a constraint we are comfortable living within, given we're required to do so. But the general rates charge will be an average 2.5 increase in line with the state government cap. And I expect, Madam Mayor, that we will see some other great projects kick off. We're actually going to finally see the main Yarra Trail extension to Warrandyte get some funding this year. The design work will be commenced on that project, which is a long time in coming and a great move for the cycle paths in our city. And of course, we have some grant money coming towards us, which we'll try and find a way of squeezing into the budget. Unfortunately, we're not as we don't benefit from the munificence of the federal government like some other municipalities. If you wanted to go over to, say, the city of our neighbours just across the Maroondah, yes, much more marginal seat, where different sort of politics is being paid. Yes, over there, $50 million for Dorset Road, $24.5 million for Canterbury Road. 2 projects, and that's not the only ones funded, councillors. 2 projects, $60.45 million. Our road project funding is only $5 million from the federal government. So, you know, I guess what it comes down to is that people will play politics when it comes time for federal government, and they'll try and influence voters. And for my 2 cents, councillors, I would encourage the voters of Manningham, make Menzies marginal. If you want to reduce the amount of ratepayers funding going into capital works, that's an opportunity for the councillor voters.
Councillor, could you just be seated for one moment? Councillor Conlon.
Point of order is regarding...
Could you stand, please? Thank you.
Point of order is just regarding the relevance politicking, the relevance probably of the last comments by Councillor McLeish.
I will uphold that, Councillor McLeish. It's not relevant to the motion. Thank you.
I would therefore like to commend the budget to the chamber. I think we have a very credible budget. There's been a lot of hard work by many councillors put into this. Many officers have put much hard work into it. There is still much more hard work to be done over the next 2 months as we go through the budget process, and we very much look forward to receiving the community feedback that is going to come from the consultation process, which we are now commencing, should this motion pass in the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor McLeish. Would the seconder like to speak?
Nothing to add.
Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Haynes.
A question first. The addition to the motion, the Part E, can you please read that to me?
Certainly. The addition
pretty much addresses
is...
the question that I'd had, so
Yep.
I'd like to,
I can read it to you.
Thank you.
That the projects that have been identified for federal grant money also be referred to the budget process for consideration. Those are the words.
Okay, thank you. I rose to speak against this motion. I also ask that, can I rise to ask for an amendment to the existing motion?
If the amendment mirrors the alternate motion, then that would be inappropriate. So is that your intention, to seek to amend this motion that mirrors the alternate that's just been not carried?
You can't do that.
You can, yeah, that's not possible.
Okay. So can I ask for an amendment regarding the Part E, just to add a few things to do with, I have been, can we ask for the budget, what those words were? Can we have some words? I'm not good at the wording, so comprehensive information and assurances that are contained within the budget of the state and federal. Look, these are the words I've put. I would like to see, so you can do it, more comprehensive information and assurances that this budget contain for all the state and federal government funding to council, so that way I get to make a more informed decision. I'm asking for an amendment for it to be expanded with the comprehensive information and assurances.
So, Councillor...
State and federal funding. That's all. That was my request. That's just a question.
Councillor, so you're seeking to amend the motion, is that correct? You amend Part E. One moment.
I actually think what she's doing is a Part E and a Part F. So leave Part E as it is, I think, to make sure it's considered, and then a Part F if that's what she's after, the assurance that all government is considered as part of the budget. That's what sorry.
What was to get assurance that all...
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, but as a mover of the motion, I won't be accepting that amendment.
That's easier.
As a mover, I won't accept the amendment, Madam Mayor.
You won't accept the amendment? Thank you. Just one moment, please. I'm receiving advice from governance. If I can I have a moment? Thank you. Yeah.
To be clear about what her amendment is and ask if there's a second. Stop her.
Okay. Councillor Haynes, could you please be clearer about the amendment that you are seeking?
Yeah,
and
thank you.
And then I will ask for a seconder, if there is a seconder. Okay, so we have already. Firstly, have you got the? I
haven't got your wording, which is why I'm confused.
You've got your wording.
Have you got the actual officer recommendation in front of you, which is page...
Yes, I've
300.
got the officer recommendation in front of me.
In front of you? Okay, so currently there's an item, there's E. Yes.
But I haven't got that because we've just put it on
Okay,
now.
well, I can read it out
Thank
to you
Yeah,
again.
go on.
Okay. That the projects that have been identified for federal grant money also be referred to the budget process for consideration. That's number E.
That's right,
Now,
that's fine.
if you could stand, please, and tell us what further amendment you're proposing.
So for consideration with a comprehensive information as to what the funding commitment entails, for a better word.
For consideration, is this a continuation on item E?
I'm just trying to add from, yeah. So
From
for
item E, you
That's
want the
correct,
words
yeah.
for consideration?
Well, it's not good to do this on the fly, as we know.
No.
Quite right
So-
about that.
Yeah, so that's why, because I would like the more comprehensive information than what you've just requested for the refer to the projects for consideration.
Point of
That's
order,
all.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Look, I can't speak now. Look, the very fact is that we're referring it to a process. I hope that all our processes are comprehensive. I've been assured that they're comprehensive and they are done with diligence.
Okay, so your point-
And really is the relevance of those sorts of terms which actually cast bad images on council that it doesn't do that. And I quite vehemently object to that. And I'm extremely offended by a connotation that we don't go to that level. Now, in due process, as part of it, we're referring those two things. If I was wanting to do anything in this budget, I don't want to win the draft budget. I want to win the final budget, the one that's approved at the end. And that's, if I was a community person, be fighting for, not to be fighting a win on a draft budget.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Madam Mayor, I think we've got a motion here.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I am going to let Councillor Haynes have the ability to follow the rules of the meeting rules. She is entitled to seek an amendment. Now, there is an alternate, Councillor Haynes, that you could put it as a question to the officers, and the officers
Madam Mayor.
could, yeah?
Madam Mayor, based on the discussion that we've just had around the table,
Yeah.
I don't want to add anything to the amendment because I have a feeling it's going to be another waste of time, but I will be speaking against the motion. So when you're ready to call for speakers against.
Well, I am calling for speakers against the motion.
Second to have the
So I take it now you're not seeking to amend the motion, and I am now...
No one's...
Okay, did I call for a seconder? Can I have a seconder? I'd had a seconder, yeah. And then, yeah, so it is, if you wish to speak against the motion.
With a question. Okay. So, look, councillors, I need to speak against this motion because, as Councillor Goff has clearly stated, that it's common that by the time we get to the end of this budget, because I keep getting told this is just the draft, this is just the draft, and we do that every year, and I have every year sat through listening to this is just the draft, and when it gets to the final budget, very little has changed.
Oh.
And so I would like to see more comprehensive things within this budget. And not only me, I've actually even spoke to many people saying that the budget isn't comprehensive enough to do with these things, with the extra funding that we've had over budgets over many years, and they're not within the detail that I get to make a well-informed decision. I cannot sit in front of this draft budget and agree with it. I cannot, in all honesty, on behalf of the community and this council itself, who I work very strongly with, this budget is the only thing, as I constantly be told, that we get to decide around the table, besides all the other small things that we get to somehow influence. And as Councillor McLeish has said, that we got $15.7 million in our roads so far in this budget, and yet a $5 million puny amount has been given to us. Well, I don't see that a third extra is puny, so I'm just thankful that we have got something. And so this council has successfully lobbied for a lot of extra funding, and I'm very thankful for the lobbying and that was put forward way in November, that we put it forward and we put projects together, and that we've been able to secure this. And I hope that we do more within the state budget, because the previous state government, we didn't seem to lobby much for them. I don't remember any sitting down at that time. So I need to speak against...
Point of order? Is there a point of order?
No accuracy
Councillor
in that
Galbally.
statement whatsoever.
I think Councillor Haynes is making this a very political speech, and she's very pro one side, and I don't think that's really relevant to us right here. We're here just to talk about our budget, which we have spent months and months going over with our officers, and they have always been at our beck and call whenever we needed more information to come to the decisions as far as this draft budget that we've got in front of us. Now, I, for one, have a list of community groups that would love a footpath to their sporting facilities. And I will stop there. And what I tell the people is write a submission. And I would suggest you do the same.
Thank you, Councillor Galbally. And I'm going to uphold the point of order in terms of relevance. Okay. Have you...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, point of order, I understand, so I won't say that I'm not. But anyway, this is the only athletics track.
You have spoken for 3 minutes, so I'm going to have to ask for a motion to extend time. Okay. Do I have a mover?
I move that the motion be put.
You move that the motion be put.
You did?
Well, I am actually going to ask first, do I have a mover to extend time? I don't have a mover. Yeah.
Procedural motion takes care. But, look, Madam Mayor, I'll move the motion that extra time be given, and it's 1.5 minutes, isn't it?
Correct. 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. So I move that. We need a seconder.
It's seconded.
We need to vote.
Councillor Haynes?
Okay.
We need to vote.
Oh,
We need to vote on it.
Yes.
All those in favour? Motion carried.
Okay. In a short 2 minutes, without making too many points, I'd want to tell the public that are here and that are watching and that are not here that hopefully they will look at this budget intently and they will take notice of it, and they will definitely see what the council is doing with our money as a resident myself, and to be able to work together with council and myself and other councillors to work forward to make a better budget due to the amendment and all those things. So there are many flaws, I believe, within this budget, and the main one for me, and that's why I brought this one up, and there were others that I brought up earlier about comprehensiveness, but the Tom Kelly athletics tracks users are not one community. They are not just one group of people. They are not just athletics people. We just seem to name it that, but there are so many people that use this facility, and it is so outdated, and it is the only one within Manningham. Tell me how many footy clubs we've got, how many soccer clubs we've got. This budget is flawed as for the equity that is needed to put a proper budget together for the City of Manningham, and the equity that is needed for this Tom Kelly track, and also the reality that I'm concerned going forward is that they have been asked by this council to put forward more money. And I think that going through another process when this has already been more than funded and we have it in the cash reserve, that this budget, draft budget, definitely is not what I could put my hand up to pass.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to speak in support of the budget because if this isn't put through, then there is no Tom Kelly track, there's no anything. We're not putting anything out to the public for consideration. There'll be no considerations, and it won't be going through. So we need to put a draft budget out to the people in a due considered manner, which we have done, which we are going to do, I hope. Yes, it is flawed. Flawed is based on. We're based. This budget has been based on financial responsibility. It's been based on good governance. It's been based on good processes. It's been based with the feedback of community and councillors to this particular point. What it hasn't been based on is the feedback from wider community people. And that's what we're going to get in this part of our budget process. And if we don't vote for this, we won't be referring those issues of the floodlighting to our budget considerations, which is now the motion we're debating. And indeed, I'm very surprised that because a motion is put to go up for consideration to be put into the budget considerations for the adoption of our budget, that all of a sudden our whole process is flawed. What we're doing in the community is flawed. Everything is flawed just because an item has been referred to be considered to be included in the actual budget that we're going to have to approve in a couple of months' time. And I would have liked to have heard these flawed concerns while we were discussing our budget.
Councillor Haynes.
I would have liked to have heard about the inequities and the enunciation of that in the preparation of where we got to at the moment. And in all things, we have to choose particular priorities, and we've spent a long, hard time. And I think everyone sitting around here will know some of my priorities that have not been funded. And they are footpaths and roads and drains in front of schools and houses that aren't, in this particular budget, funded to the level that I'd want them funded to. But I'm not coming up here and saying our processes are flawed. Now, there's serious allegations, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I didn't say the process was flawed. I said the budget is flawed.
Councillor, people were quiet when you made your submission, and I expect that from my fellow councillors. So, Councillor Goff, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is, in the decision of council, a very awkward way of bringing on a good news story.
Councillor Goff, I'm going to have to ask for an extension of time. I'm going to have to ask for a motion. Yes? Seconded. All those in favour? Motion carried. Continue, Councillor Goff.
This could have been a night of a fantastic story of something that's coming through and being referred to our budget to be considered to come up, and it's now been coming in to a questioning of all of our processes at council that we go up against, which has been, I think, to me, quite devastating in that we really do try to go and consider everything. And indeed, something that has just come up in the last 3 or 4 days after all of this literature is out, to be concluded without any other discussions, I don't think is right. And therefore, I do believe that our motion to put those into the consideration in the period of consultation for inclusion in the budget would be a wonderful thing. But it seems to me that it doesn't seem to be a wonderful thing. So I'm very amazed, Madam Mayor. I support this budget. It needs to go through, because if we don't, then the whole community will be lacking on funding and everything else that we're going through to the future. And there's a whole lot, $50 million worth of capital works and everything else. And we're not throwing that because we've spent a long time in the air, but we do want the input from our community to refine the budget. And that refining may include other things, including lighting or whatever, but we need to do it in an orderly manner.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Are there any speakers against the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak? Would the mover like to close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm very proud of this budget, and I'm very proud of the work that the council officers and the councillors around the table have put into framing this budget. I refer my fellow councillors to page 42 and 43, 41 and 42, where you will find a comprehensive listing and breakdown of the grants that are applicable within the budget, the sources of those grants and the areas within the council organisation where those grants are spent. I'd also refer you and any other people who are watching to pages, let's see, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. They're all the capital works projects, and every one of those projects is listed with its cost, it's listed with its source of funding. It tells you whether it's a renewal, an upgrade, it tells you whether it's council cash, whether it's grant money, whether it's from reserves, whether it's from asset sales. It is all comprehensively reported in the budget. I've been on council 6 years. At no stage have I heard the individual issuing these criticised and recommending changes to the reporting of the budget, improvements to the reporting of the budget. I've seen plenty of councillors do it, and I've seen some really good suggestions, especially this councillor come up with some really good suggestions to improve the reporting on the budget. I've sat through 2 months of meetings, no, 3 months of meetings on this budget. I haven't heard anyone saying we need to improve the reporting in the budget, but suddenly tonight, this is a terrible budget. It's all done badly and it's all badly reported and there's some grandstanding going on. Councillors, I recommend the well-considered, well-thought-through, well-planned budget that has been prepared be approved, and we will do as we were going to do before all this kerfuffle tonight, do what we were going to do. We were going to consider the projects that those grants have been announced for in the next few weeks, in the next phase of the budget cycle through community consultation. And I commend the recommendation to the council.
Thank you, councillor. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried.
Shameful.
Division's been called.
Division? Division? Those in favour? Councillor Anna Chen, Councillor Mike Zaparopoulos, Councillor Andrew Conlon, Councillor Jeff Goff, Councillor Paul McLeish, Councillor Michelle Kleinert, Councillor Sophie Galbally and Councillor Paula Piccinini. All those against? Councillor Dot Haynes. The next item, 12.2. Livability, Innovation and Technology Committee, a proposal. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Councillor Zaparopoulos.
I move that the recommendation be adopted with the inclusion of councillors Paul McLeish, Paula Piccinini and Mike Zafiropoulos.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chen. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes. Councils from early days considered it necessary to establish advisory committees. Through such committees, we're able to receive advice on how the community expects local government to consider and respond to issues such as transport, social justice, equity, open spaces, heritage, the environment, and so on. Without a doubt, we live in times of rapid change, which presents both challenges and opportunities. To merely maintain the current set of approaches and solutions won't be enough to address our most pressing challenges. In fact, merely maintaining current practice or even slightly improving it would leave us behind. We need fundamentally different ways to deliver public value by embracing and investing on innovation and technology. Only in this way we will be able to generate greater efficiencies and thus do more with less, enhancing the livability of our city in these challenging times we are going through. The City of Manningham has already demonstrated an appetite for such an approach. This proposal reinforces our resolve to focus more intensely in this area and deliver the best possible service at the most affordable cost by tackling the challenges ahead of us together with the community. For some time now, we have been undertaking innovative projects and we have seen the resulting benefits. We have upgraded our information technology. Our Citizen Connect project was recognised by the sector. We continue to embrace online for many of our services. We're introducing the Customer Relations Management System And we have initiated the Jackson Court Smart City project, to mention just a few. And the last project I mentioned, the Jackson Court one, was successful in an application we made to the federal government for funding. Manningham is experiencing rapid changes which bring with them many challenges and opportunities, as I said before. Just to mention a few, our population is growing in unprecedented rates. There is growing congestion and public transport needs. The livability we have enjoyed so far is being threatened. The undesirable impacts of the high-density development we are forced to accommodate need to be managed carefully. We need to show a responsibility for future generations by not merely supporting, but leading in environmental sustainability. And the list goes on and on. I strongly support the establishment of this advisory committee because it is timely, because of its potential to contribute to our livability, and because it recognises that new ideas can be harnessed not only within the administration, but also within councillors and by engaging members of our community. I urge you to support this important initiative.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yes, just a few words. And yes, council is facing enormous challenges, and local councils have little powers in many areas. For example, managing population growth and planning and public transport. But there are areas that we can do, such as supporting innovation and doing more for less. And I hope that this proposal will be able to provide innovative ideas and suggestions and find solutions and make a positive impact. So I have strong belief in this proposal, and I look forward to its success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I would put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, Advocacy Motions. Municipal Association of Victoria, May 2019. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
Yes, I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. Would the mover like to speak?
I would like to speak. Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to be the MAV rep for this council, but in bringing these motions, which will now go to State Council, there's 5 motions, and almost all of them, in fact all of them, have a common theme, and that is advocating to the state government to fund the things they should be funding and not trying to cost shift onto local government without compensation. So we have school-focused youth service funding, which is about to lapse and requires funding, ongoing support from the state government. We have affordable housing, stimulus funding. We have Metro Access Program. Again, a further 3 years is being asked for, and none of those programs that's about to run out of funds. Climate change and emergency management funding, which is because of the changes proposed by the government in terms of emergency management. There'll be extra costs need to be borne by the council, and we need to, given in a rate capped environment, these sort of things that we're advocating for are the only way that we can maintain our sustainability financially, because most of our income as a municipality is from rates. So we don't have the choice of increasing our income through increasing taxes like other levels of government do. That's been stripped of us, and so I put these motions, this motion to support the MAV in advocating on our behalf to the state government in these matters.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? Any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 13.2, Eastern Region Group of Councils membership. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kleinert.
That the recommendation be adopted with the inclusion of Councillor Chen.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally. Would the mover like to speak?
Just very quickly, Madam Mayor. Like all matters that come to Council, we have extensive briefings. We get to ask all the questions that we need in order for us to make an informed decision. Tonight we are deciding and I'm asking my fellow councillors to endorse that we stay engaged with the Eastern Region Group of Councils, which consists of Knox, Maroondah, Monash, Whitehorse and Yarra Ranges. And basically it works that we come together as a region. It helps us simplify our connection to state and federal, which as we've seen is most important. It helps performance opportunity, integrated planning, improved advocacy and improved visibility. So they've come together, they've got a 3-year strategic plan. With that, that includes working with, and again, it's been brought up a few times, matters of, well, about to come up, to do with transport. So the Eastern Transport Coalition, affordable housing is part of this Eastern Region group dealing with these other externals, and of course Eastern Alliance for Greenhouse Action. And if you look at tonight's agenda, through all the other items that we've endorsed, these have been part of much of what we do. So it will help us bring together, support each other, and then advocate really at a regional level to state and federal. So asking that we endorse this and once again be part of the Eastern Region group.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yes, I'll just add by pointing out that on an annual fee basis, it would just cost us $30,000 per council, and if we entered at the moment being already into the financial year and the 12th month is sort of halfway through, we're really only paying a pro rata fee of $10,000 up until 30th of June 2020, I believe. So it's not going to cut a lot into our present budget, but it will provide us with a lot of benefits when we look at different sort of coordination we can have with other councils in operational matters as well as funding and in quite a few other aspects. And as council's representative on the Eastern Affordable Housing Alliance, I would welcome that we also have this double effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Okay. Item 13.3, Strategic Risk Register Report to Council, 6 monthly report, March 2019. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goff.
I move as on the paper, Madam.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Would the mover like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Although this is just a report for noting, I think it's important to state that the processes that we do have here at Manningham with the Audit and Risk Committee and looking at issues that could come up and are risks for Council and Council's operations. The report goes into some detail of the parameters and the influences that have been occurring in the past 6 months that reflects on the lens that things were looked at. And also it looks into the areas of our council and our council operation and it prioritises areas of risk, whether they're high or medium or low. Now, to say that they're low doesn't mean they're not important, but it's just to say that the chances of that are probably less, but you still keep an eye on it. It's highlighted a number of areas that are high and one area that remains high, and the area that remains high is the safety of officers and people in the community during council operations is a high-risk enterprise. It doesn't mean we're doing things badly, it's just an area that we need to look at. And I do note that the sheer fact of reviewing them through the areas draws attention to those departments and those areas to look at the practices that they're doing and look at ways in which to improve. So, Madam Mayor, we do see with a number of them that were rated high, they go down with what we're doing to a rating of moderate or whatever. So we are required to sort of look at those risks and everything for our own selves, but I'd like to thank all the people involved in that, including the departmental people at Council, but also the Audit and Risk Committee that actually sit down and go through this and work through to get this report. And this is for noting for us, and I'm sure that it'll be passed on and open for everyone. So councillors, we need to note it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Would the seconder like to speak?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. 13.4, Appointment of Authorised Officer, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Do I have a mover? Councillor McLeish.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. Would the mover like to speak?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would the seconder like to speak? Accordingly, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. 13.5, Record of Assembly of Councillors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Would the mover like to speak?
No, thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. 13.6, Documents for Sealing. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted with the addition of the following agreement. Consent to build over an easement agreement under Section 173 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Council and AAM Sidaros and MYA Sidaros of 12 Moraine Avenue, Templestowe, Lower.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haynes, would the mover like to speak?
No, thanks.
Would the seconder like to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Item number 14, urgent business. Do I have a mover?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McLeish.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted. That the motion, sorry, be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haynes, would the mover like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, like all of us, I'm very, very pleased to see that some much needed funding is now being put into a project to upgrade Fitzsimons Lane at the intersection of Main Road, Porter Street and Foot Street. This is a long overdue upgrade. The works will actually continue all the way through to Eltham at Main Road. It's going to remove some two quite dangerous roundabouts. It's going to signalise those intersections, and it's going to improve the intersection of Fitzsimons Lane and Foot Street. And it's great to see that the state government, despite this being a very, very safe Liberal seat, is seeing the merit in upgrading this particularly busy section of road in Manningham. It's also worthwhile noting that it's being done prior to the construction works of the North East Link. And yet another reason, I think, to see this particular stretch of road upgraded and the bottlenecks that all of the people that travel through this area every day are suffering. The point of this particular motion, Madam Mayor, is not to criticise the project that the state government is proceeding with. We're grateful for the funding. My concern is the detail of that particular project. The detail is impacting the citizens of Manningham quite directly, because in Fitzsimons Lane, between Foot Street and Porter Street, the proposal is to remove the bus lanes, which are there at the moment. Now, those bus lanes are relatively new. They're only about 4 years old, I believe. They were put in there by Vic Roads, and Vic Roads at the time of introducing those that particular enhancement said that the project was to establish the bus lanes to establish Fitzsimons Lane as a priority road for buses, which, you know, that's quite true. It is a priority road for buses. There are 5 bus lines going through that particular section of roadway. 2 of them, in fact, are the smart bus routes, 901 and 902. There are 6 bus stops in that section of road. And those dedicated bus lanes are vital to the efficient running of these busy bus routes through our municipality. Particularly the smart buses, they're orbital routes. Those things run from, I think one of them runs from Tullamarine Airport all the way through to Elwood, I think. Frankston, yes. They're very important routes, these orbital routes, and one of the things that they suffer from is timeliness. They really struggle to remain on time over the long distance of their route. And it is critical for those sorts of orbital smart bus routes that they get to move efficiently through peak hour traffic, because the worst delays happen for commuters during the peak period. This is one of the busiest pieces of road in our city, yet the government proposal seeks to remove the bus lanes for one section only. There's actually going to be a break in the bus lane in Fitzsimons Lane. It'll continue north of Porter Street and it'll continue south of Foot Street. But there'll be a break in between along Fitzsimons Lane when the bus lanes are removed. And those bus lanes will also function currently as the cycle lanes. And when you look at the proposal from the government, what you don't see is new cycle lanes. You see a proposal about traffic lights and you see a proposal about slip lanes, you see all sorts of proposals. There's nothing about bike lanes being replaced, and there is a removal of the bus lanes, turning them over to cars. And once those bus lanes are turned over to cars, one thing that you can guarantee will happen is the buses will now be held up by the cars, and every time a bus stops, the traffic will be held up. So we won't actually get 3 vehicle lanes, we'll get 2.5 vehicle lanes. And in the third lane, the traffic will be competing with the buses. It's a very poor design outcome, and I ask my fellow councillors to support this motion that we write to the Minister for Transport, Infrastructure, the Minister for Public Transport, Ports, Freight, the Minister for Roads, and the State Premier, seeking their urgent attention to the design, to change the design, to instead maintain the dedicated bus lanes, make use of the land reservation which is there, which will more than adequately cater for a dedicated road lane. It's not difficult, the land's there, all they've got to do is put down the money. If they're prepared to put 50, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars into public transport, heavy rail, light rail, new trains, surely a few $1 million can be found to support bus-bound Manningham and maintaining the dedicated bus lanes for the future of the commuters in this city.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Councillor McLeish said it so well and has put this motion together so well. I can't do anything else but support it. I'm very excited that Councillor McLeish has done a lot of work and wants this to get to the relative ministers and the Premier, because the Premier has definitely got the ability to make a change on this, and the fact that there is land there to widen it for the buses to be used is a definite flaw in what has been proposed. It's as he said, it's a good thing that we're getting some changes and we're getting some upgrades, but there are flaws within this upgrade that are definitely not going to meet the needs of our community. Our bus community is not only the dedicated bus lane needed, but we need extended hours and more buses, and this will not be a good outcome for this community for the project to go ahead as it is. So I hope that we lobby the state government just as strongly as possible to be able to get the best outcome for this along that necessary roadway.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any speakers against the motion? Yes, but I'm just going to ask first if there's any speakers against the motion.
I've got a question. Oh, not a question. I've got an amendment.
Have an amendment. Councillor Goff.
If I just may, on this particular motion, put a part C, and that is write to our local, state and federal members, informing them of our motion and request, because quite honestly, yes, we're requesting the people that are in power here, but also we have a local state and a local federal member that need to be abreast of those situations and may be able to assist in anything that goes on. So it's adding a part C if it's suitable.
Happy to accept a very wise and helpful amendment.
Thank you. So I have here part C, write to our local, state and federal members advising them of our motion and request. Okay, and it's accepted. Thank you.
Yeah, it clears up. Yeah, we do. That's right. Yeah, that's fine. All of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goff. Now, are there any speakers against the motion? No. There is a question, and also there are also speakers who also want to speak on this motion. So firstly, Councillor Zaparopoulos, your question.
Yeah,
If you could stand, please.
Is,
If you could stand, please. Thank you.
my question is in relation to what I've heard for Councillor McLeish, and that is Vic Rhodes. Rhodes initiated this some 4 years ago. Is it possible to obtain the rationale? What was the press release they issued at that time justifying, obviously, the necessity of the bus routes through there? I think that might help us. And why is it that we're only lobbying politicians and not government departments such as Vic Roads as well? Having them on side would help, I think, our purpose, because politicians do listen to their government agencies, and that might help us with the advocacy.
Okay, so, Councillor, your question and advice. So your question is it possible to find the rationale?
Is this something we could incorporate in our actions?
Lobbying
government departments as well as politicians.
So we could... Are you seeking to amend the amendment, Councillor Mike Zaparopoulos?
No, not
So
necessarily.
I think, firstly to clarify, I think by writing to the Minister we don't affect lobbying the government departments. And second, yes, there is a press release available from Vic Roads. It's available on the Vic Roads website. If you search Fitzsimons Lane, Bus Lane on Vic Roads, you'll find it. And that my motion actually contains a direct quote, because it's a direct quote from their press release that calls it a bus priority road.
So that answers your question, Councillor? Excellent. And is there... Okay. Councillor Chen, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As a regular bus user, and I just say that people always wonder why trains are more reliable than buses. It's because they don't have to mix up with other vehicles. And so that's why bus lane is very important, because normally they are restricted to buses, and just the purpose is just to speed up public transport, and they will otherwise hold up by the traffic congestion. And because Manningham is the only metropolitan municipality that only rely on buses as our only public transport solution. And after many years of lobbying and advocating, and we have been seeing some success in our DART services, that mainly because of the frequency, the reliability, and often, and especially that given the priority for using bus lanes, that speed up that's why we can see the increasing patronage on those DART services. So I think that bus can be fast as well if they are given a fair shot. So that's why bus lane is really, really important. So I hope that our fellow councillors will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak? As there were no councillors speaking against the motion, I will now... Nothing to add? I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. Agenda item 15, councillor question time. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Goff.
Madam Mayor, are you aware of a situation that's developing with NELP and their report, their environmental effects statement, talking about the removal of the River Red Gum at the corner of, I suppose it's Manningham Road and Bridge Street? Yeah. That they're saying they cannot save. This, to me, is a great betrayal of Nella and NELP, because in all consultations, not only were we told that this was the cheapest route, which went from about 5 or 6 billion to 20 billion, and it's not the cheapest. But now we're finding that things that were given to the community as guarantees, and one of the guarantees from the very first meeting and all the consultation meetings was a little ring around that tree saying that tree will be protected. And for the life of me, Madam Mayor, I cannot understand why, if now the road can go into Banksia Park and infiltrate into that area, taking a wider berth, why that tree is no longer able to be saved. Now, I'm hoping that we as a council will be writing in and putting our objections very largely in with the removal of that iconic tree. It is a tree that has been photographed as representing this area. It's a tree that's been photographed on many calendars, and it is known widely to our community. And that is a huge landmark that is going. And in all discussions up until now at the 9th minute, or the last minute, it already all of a sudden goes into the endangered species list.
Predates European settlement.
Yes. It's just incredible that this group, Nella, seem to go over the costs of everything. They know the dollar cost of everything, but the value of absolutely nothing, Madam Mayor. They don't know the value of what the community values. And here at Manningham, we do value that tree. Here at Manningham, we do value the flat land that is so vitally needed for our growing population and sports. At Manningham, we do value a community of businesses down there that are going to be absolutely entirely wiped out by this road and unreplaceable within the area. Madam Mayor, we need to actually stand up for what matters, and to our community, this tree is important for our community, and we need to fight at all levels, including the federal and state members of parliament and all the departments and our community to actually rise up to at least protect this amenity. You can't tell me, with all the billions that they're spending on this road, they haven't got people and they haven't got an ability to save one tree. So if they can spend all the other, they can also spend it and save infrastructure and our trees in this area, Madam Mayor. So I'm just wondering if you're aware of that and whether we're going to do anything about it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I am aware, and I couldn't agree with you more. I'll take that question on notice, and we will continue as a council of 9 councillors and a council of officers to lobby strongly for the retention of that tree and many other community assets and benefits. Thank you. Are there any other councillor questions? Thank you. We will now move to item 16, which is confidential reports. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Thank you. Councillor Goff.
I'll move as on the paper that goes to confidential reports.
You need to read that.
Oh, God.
Here you go. That part.
Here we go. I'm not good at reading. Was it you supposed to be you that moved it?
No, you. That's right.
That council close the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 89(2)H and D of the Local Government Act 1989 to consider item 16.1 concerning any other matter which the council or special committee considers would prejudice the council or any persons, and items 16.2, 16.3 and 16.4 concerning contractual matters.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Conlon. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried.